Hello, hope everyone's doing okay today. Real quick, if I could just get someone to verify that the sound is coming through okay. Why? Okay, hold on just a second. I'm having trouble seeing chat. Okay, got chat. Sorry about that. Okay. Nathan, the subcontra bassoon, I haven't been able to do a lot of work on that because of the pandemic and and a fire in the shop, but more is coming. Okay, so if you haven't been here before, we're going to be playing some old NES games, but we're going to be doing it in a somewhat weird way. We're going to be editing the note table to change the music in various ways. We can do this because the NES isn't a MIDI processor. Each game is responsible for defining its own musical pitches. And if you go to the description of this video, of this stream, you can find a spreadsheet that looks a lot like this for MegaMan 2 that will show you the note table for this game and the address. So the values in blue are the default values, and then we can apply some transformations to these, and those end up in purple. And then we can copy that in to the to the ROM and play through with some of these transformations. So just as a reminder, here is some of the default game. So if I go to my spreadsheet and under transposition, I select -24, all of these values are going to update, and the result will be 2 octaves lower. So if I open this with a hex editor, and go to the appropriate place in the ROM, I can replace those values with the new values, save that, We have the same music, but 2 octaves lower. And this is completely playable. Now, in past streams, I've gone through this one at a time, but for this stream, I thought it would be interesting to do something a little bit different. I have some versions already queued up, ready to play, so I thought we might listen to some more of these, the opening, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask the chat. So, if instead of 2 octaves lower, so if instead of changing the transposition amount, we change this value here, that's going to change the distance between each note. So a distance of 1 becomes a distance of -1. The result is going to be an inversion of the note table. A sharp becomes A flat, B becomes G, so on and so on. So while I'm playing through this, if you have any ideas for things you'd like to hear, a particular level, a particular combination, feel free to share those in the chat. And I'm going to warn you right now, what we're listening to right here, the inverted version, is probably going to be the best sounding thing we're going to listen to tonight. And since I've made this clear on other streams, I'll go ahead and make it clear here. I'm not going to be good at this game. So, if you came here to watch expert speedrunning, you're in the wrong place. This is for music shenanigans, not skill. And actually, I just realized something. Let's play through some of that level with the default music. Yeah, so RA, as I'm playing through some of these I'm gonna play through the default music first, so if you hear a track that you think would work well for your Undertone series, keep that in mind. Alright. So that is the default music for Airman. Now back to the inverted version. Well. So I watched a speed run of this game last night, and he was doing, actually jumping on the edges of those spikes. I don't think I can do that reliably. Okay. So, rather than play through a whole bunch of levels with inverted, let's go directly to a different version. So, if instead of -1, I replace that with 2, that's going to double the distance between each note in the note table. So, A sharp is going to become B. B is going to become C sharp. And it's going to end up as the whole tone scale. If you're not terribly familiar with the whole tone scale, watch an old cheesy movie, and whenever someone is having a flashback and the harp does that thing, that's a whole tone scale. And so whenever we expand the difference between notes, we really push the limits of the notes the NES can produce well. So a lot of really high notes and a lot of low notes. Even some notes that overflow the NES's ability to produce the note. So if you ever hear a note that just sounds completely out of place, it probably was too low and then overflowed. No, Ari, we're not going to be getting any pixel perfect anything. And those moderately high notes become really darn high. Okay. So, if instead of 2, we do 0.5, well, we've halved the distance between notes, and we've turned our chromatic scale into a quarter tone scale. So A, or A sharp, becomes the note in between A and A sharp, and B becomes A sharp. So this is going to be a lot less pretty. Well, hold on. Max, glad to see you here. And like I said at the beginning, if you have any ideas for ways that you would like to hear the music messed up, be thinking of those as I play through. The only issue with Mega Man 2 is they got rid of they changed the boss music. I don't like the new boss music as much. I So, Human in Theory, yeah, it probably is going to be too long to post in chat. I should really have this up on screen. If you have something too complex to send in chat, something that uses the remap function of the spreadsheet, go ahead and send that to my email address. It's rbobo@subcontrabassoon.com. Okay, so moving on from that, let's see. So the next, well, actually, The next logical step would be, you know, playing with the transposition, playing with the transformation. You know, we could try some things like, for instance, if we wanted to hear, if we replace it with 0.1, that means all of the notes are going to be 10 cents apart. So everything's going to be really close together. And the opposite, if we do something like, well, in the past, we've liked to do using the value, the constant of E, so 2.7718, which makes the values really extreme. But we're going to go straight for, at least in the airman stage, we're going to go straight for the most extreme, which is if we just apply a random function. So if I go into remap here, if I put yes, then that's going to use the values from this second sheet, and I can set these to whatever I want, even a random amount. Which is going to be complete and utter madness. So, now, complete and utter madness. Connor, yes, I think we all need microtonal MegaMan in our lives. Yep. Okay, so I'm almost done with the pre-prepared versions on this particular stage. So if anyone has a good idea for something they'd like to hear on this stage, now's the time. So I do have one last version pre-prepared, and that's the Bohlen-Pierce scale. So a Bohlen-Pierce scale is a pretty odd scale. So a normal musical scale, we take an octave. So we take one octave and we divide it in 12 equal steps. A Bohlen-Pierce scale takes an octave and a perfect fifth, or a little over 19 half steps, and divides that into 13 equal steps. So we could just go in here and say 19.02 divided by 13 and have a transformation of 1.46, and that would make the Bohlen-Pierce steps the right amount apart from one another. However, I want since there's a different number of steps, what I did instead is I created my own custom remap, and I just left out one of the 13 steps. That way, every 12 steps, you get back to that consonant interval of an octave and a fifth, rather than 12 thirteenths of the scale. Wish I knew why it did that. Okay. Bohlen-Pierce time. And I'm sorry I don't have a fancy graphic for Bohlen-Pierce. And what you should notice on the Bohlen-Pierce is that it sounds very odd, but not necessarily bad. The intervals are not necessarily dissonant, they're just consonant in a very weird way, a very alien way. It's all based off of the odd overtones of the harmonic series, as opposed to a major scale, which is based off of all of the overtones. Okay, that one doesn't sound as good because it goes too high. Okay. Okay. So, let's listen to Sorry, let me just get this text cleared up so we can let everyone know what we're doing. So the next thing we're going to be listening to is a Human in Theory submitted sounds like they did a subset of 22 ET, so that's 22 half steps per octave, but they chose 12 of those notes in particular to fill out the scale. Once again, that way the octaves line up. Okay. So, actually I don't need this at all. So we'll just open that in the hex editor. I'll just do a quick search for F207 since I know that's... Okay, hold on. I know F207 is low A, and that's the beginning of the hex table, or the note table. So if I just do a quick search for F207, there's the beginning of the note table, and I know that that's the only occurrence of F207 in the game code. So, So once again, because it fits in to the octave, because they chose a particular, or 12 of these notes rather than just trying to do all 22, it's still somewhat recognizable, but you can hear a lot of notes are quite a bit different from what we're used to in a normal 12 equal temperament scale. Okay, so we're getting ready to move on to a different level. I'll just go with the first chat. The first person to post a level in chat, that'll be the next level. Okay, these birds are really annoying. Okay, so Aiden says bottom right corner, so we'll go with that. I'll be honest, I don't know who that is either. Okay, so we'll start with the default. And we've already heard all this music. So, Crash Man. Well, try to get away from the infinitely respawning enemies. Now, one thing we're going to hear on this one is anything that changes the registers around is going to do very weird things with the vibrato, because the vibrato isn't, the way it's programmed in the game, it doesn't go up and down a certain musical amount. It goes up and down a certain number of cycles, so low notes are affected much differently than high notes. Okay, so let's start. We'll go through our, well, we don't really need to do 2 octaves lower. That was more for illustration. So let's start with inverted. And as before, as I'm playing through this, if you have an idea that you want to share in chat or email to me, and we can give that a try. Okay, this just seems cruel. Well, the thing to remember about the inverted version is it's still tonal. So there's nothing alien about the music itself. It's going to result in a modal change. So anything that's major is going to become Phrygian, for example. So it can sound quite good. Really, the only time inverted sounds bad is if it uses a lot of really high notes or really low notes that end up overflowing, and especially with vibrato, you can get some really bizarre. If there's a high amount of vibrato on the bass line, as happened in part of MegaMan 1, then it's going to sound absolutely absurd in inverted. Okay, so, well, last time we did whole tone first. Let's do quarter tone first this time. Oh, we've already listened to all this. Leroy Jojo, I'm guessing you don't like this one more. Okay. I'm not gonna wait around for that thing again. Alright, now to the whole tone. Yeah, that really high-pitched arpeggio at the end there got pretty dog whistly. See, in the speedrun I watched, he had beaten Airman, so he had a special weapon that produced platforms to get through this section a lot less painfully. Birds. I'm gonna be pecked to death by birds. That's how this is gonna end. Oh, okay. Well, at least I wasn't killed by birds. Okay. So moving on to the one that I always think ends up being the craziest, the random. Yeah, anything with fast scales becomes really interesting on random. In that case, that wasn't originally a fast scale, it was a fast arpeggio, but same thing. A whole bunch of completely random notes in a row. Whenever I'm giving lessons, and a student's having difficulty with a passage that leaps around a lot, I always try to tell them, composers usually don't just write big random runs. There's almost always an arpeggio or a scale or some sort of pattern that you can use to help it make sense. In this case, no. Okay. So let's... I'm trying to think, what would be a good way to change that? Well, let's do the crunchy version I was talking about. So we're gonna replace our transformation with 0.1. So, let's do even weirder. Let's do 0.08. So all of the notes are going to be very close together. but still in the original order. F207. Okay, what? Okay, there it is. I was accidentally opening a modified version, so it wasn't finding F207. Okay, so what would this be? 0.08, that's... What is that? Is that 150 ET? No, that can't be right. That, yeah, that could be right. Okay, Arte, I just got your email. I'll put a question mark on that. Okay. So let's open our Okay, so Aiden has an idea that we can try. What about where only every other note in the scale is random? So we wouldn't be able to do that by scale because that would require knowing or well, it would require more work to do that by scale, but we could just alternate between default values and random values. Well, a human in theory, I think we can actually just do that with some if functions. So if on the spreadsheet we go to the remap section and then we say if the value's even, or if the original value's even, it set the original value, and if the original value is odd, we randomize it between certain constraints. So I don't even think we need the custom octave overwrite that you did. Okay, so let's do that real quick. So let's see. This is Aiden. I'm going to call this Aiden's mullet tuning. Half normal, half crazy. So we need 2 go into our remap, do yes, and then here we're going to say if this, or if that value, wait, if that, oh, got it. Nope, even wronger. There we go. Hold on. Excel function even? Okay, wait, I think I, hold on. If, hold on. So what if I just do even that? That's going to be -30. Okay, there we go. So if even of A2 equals A2, then return A2, else return random. Let's just do between -24 and 24. Will that work? There we go. Aiden, I think that's what you had in mind, right? Yes. Okay. Now, plug that into a ROM. Okay, I like this one. So anytime it modulates to a new key, there's a completely different set of notes that are random. Ari, I don't know. I already asked if this is what they would call a big brain scale. It's definitely an interesting one. I just like how as you modulate, the degree of randomness changes. So things that are in, you know, roughly the key of like C or F sharp might be mostly listenable, whereas a modulation away from that is not going to be. Okay. Needed a name says that they just tuned in, so they don't, for all they know, MegaMan just has big brain music. So let's pick another level, and we'll start with the default music. Once again, keep coming up with suggestions. Aiden, I don't think there's a Meat Man. I'm gonna guess you meant Heat Man. You might be thinking of a ROM hack. Okay, what am I missing here? Alright, Human in Theory, I just got an email from you. Okay, so let's move on to the inverted version. So we have our inverted. Now, Ari, I know you're listening for something that has a lot of high notes. Another possibility would be if you hear something that has a lot of low notes, you could invert your version. Oh, come on. Okay. Don't die to the slinkies. Oh. Too late. Alright. So now we have our whole tone. So a Human in Theory says that they've sent in a 12-tone scale called Centaur, which is based on a 7 limit. The only issue there is when you're working on the spreadsheet, make sure, or try to check and make sure that there's enough of a difference. So the very slight differences aren't always going to be appreciable on the NES because of the limited resolution. So you might find that you apply a transformation that doesn't change it enough to get to the, I think I really lucked out there. I think if I didn't have invincibility frames, I would have instantly died. Yeah, so just make sure that it's actually, changing the data. Because if the data doesn't change, then it doesn't matter what transformation you've applied. Because the spreadsheet will let you enter anything without checking to see if it will make a difference. Okay. Now, quarter tone. Okay. So, Ari, on the two versions you sent, which one did you want to try? The one that says Musical Road looks like it's going to be more successful. So, a human in theory, that's normal. So, because the NES defines its musical pitches by their period rather than their frequency, it loses resolution as you go high. If you look at the default note table from MegaMan, you'll see that some of the high notes are more than a half step out of tune just because of the limited ability of the NES to produce high notes. However, there's that column here. Well, hold on. This column here will tell you if the note's actually used or not. You see, a lot of these high notes where the resolution is limited aren't used by the game at all, so they don't really matter. And even these notes here, like these four really high notes, they're only used for one sound effect, that boom thing. So you can safely ignore everything above A6. If it makes a difference below A6, it's fine. Whoa. Okay. So we've done quarter tone. Random. Be thinking of... Actually, instead of random, let's do Bohlen-Pierce. Wait. Sorry, I'm gonna check something real quick. Okay, good. I got it right. I always get nervous. For some reason, I always think that maybe Pierce is spelled with an A instead of an... Hey, I didn't die to the Slinky this time. Oh no. I remember this part. I remember this part from when I was a kid. This may be as far as we get. Okay. Okay. That was probably inevitable. Okay. So... hold on a second. Let's... Real quick. I'm going to... Okay, so this is a human in theory Centaur tuning. Real quick, let's take a look and see. So, a human in theory, my suggestion would be apply a transposition down an octave or two. And then do the 7 limit version. I think it'll be a more noticeable difference. Or I think the differences will be more apparent when we listen to it if it's lower and the NES can has better resolution. Okay. Let's we'll just go to the default. Let's see. How about Woodman? Woodman seems weird. Plus he looks like he'd be a bassoonist. Okay, so now we have inverted. Okay, wait. I'm guessing there's a weapon I'm supposed to have there to make that doable. Okay. So, Are, of the levels that we've tried so far, are any gonna work for the version, either the original version or the inverted version? I'm not sure what to do there. Okay. So, okay. So, here, let's do our, so our Centaur 7 limit tuning, but down an octave. So we are going to have a better chance of hearing some of the differences. The NES is not ideal for experiments in Zen harmonics. Okay, there we go. Let's name that so I can keep track of it. Now, one of the advantages of this game is that it has a password function. So I think we should be able to look online and find out how to get to the, I think the music for the first Dr. Wily stage is, interesting. Okay, so let's go on to... Well, here, let's do that real quick. MegaMan to... Oh, there's a password generator. Awesome. Okay, well, let's just pretend that I've beaten everybody. Oh, okay. So there's a password, and we'll do this with default to begin with. Hello, Ratchet. Nice to see you here. I realized after I scheduled this that scheduling it on a holiday might not have been the best idea, but I figured canceling it after I'd already scheduled it was also not going to be the best idea. So I understand that it's going to be a little bit harder for a lot of people to get here today, but hopefully they can still enjoy the VOD. Okay, so our default. Yes, RA, that's true. But, you know, some people may have set this time aside for, I don't know, video calls or other things. Okay, so our password to get through, to start at Dr. Wily, should be that. Ah, birds. How's it going, Enning? Ah! Ratchet just said Borbs. I was very confused. That's, they meant birds that come from orbs. Okay, wait, this is... I saw this last night. Okay. So we'll start with the more basic ones. Inverted. And I don't know any way around having to enter the password every time. So, a human in theory says that those birds are called pipis, peepees, pippies, and normally you're supposed to have the leaf shield. Oh. Well, since I entered all those passwords, I do. There we go. I'm gonna... Hey, and they give me the energy back that I spent on them. Thanks for the heads up, a human. Okay, so let's do, well, we'll just go in order. We'll do the whole tone. And once again, so we are going to do Are's inverted version of an undertone series. Or an undertone series based on the inverted music. But if you have other ideas, feel free to share those, and we'll try to listen to at least a few of them. Okay. Yeah, so these notes were high to begin with, so now that we've taken them even higher by doing the whole tone transformation, they're kind of exceeding the NES's ability. The NES automatically silences any note with fewer than 8 cycles in its period. Finally, our quarter tone. That's not what I wanted. Okay. Alright, at first I was worried that something had gone wrong with your what you sent in, but I just realized what happened. You're only including the notes that are used in the game, so everything else is just zeros. So that makes sense. actually, no, I take that back. Instead of our random, let's do the mullet tuning. So if you weren't here at the beginning, this is alternating between normal and random. Okay, so let's go ahead and get Artery's tuning queued up. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about before. So Artery has only changed the notes that are actually used. So all of these zeros are notes that aren't used. Alright, so let's get our So, Artery, am I, would I be correct in saying that this is a inverted version of the harmonic series? Is that what you've done here? So those very high notes used for the UFO sound effect are a little too low to come out. So Ari is saying that, talking in chat, that this is a, he's altered the note table so that every note is aiming for that number to that harmonic, as an undertone of B flat 7. Okay. So one that never fails to disappoint for me is if we go back to our negative Euler-tastic. So we're going to do a transformation of negative E. Let's see, and what overflows? Oh, wait. Don't use the remap. Okay, so then we'll also transpose it up an octave. Wait. What's going on here? Oh. Let's do... Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Wait. Oh. I need to fix that on the spreadsheet so that if it ever overflows the 16-bit counter, it ignores it. That way I don't get that. It doesn't return that error. Okay. So plug that into our hex editor. So we're getting towards the end of what I wanted to do today. So if anyone has anything they want to hear, now would be the time. We've silenced the UFO. Oh yeah, this one had a lot of low notes, so now it has a lot of high notes. Sure. Ari, pick your stage, and if you could, in chat, explain a little more what you mean about musical rote. Oh! So Ratchet says he's going to play this at their wedding. Do you like your family? Do you want them to stay? Okay. I did not expect that. Okay, so we're gonna do a. I get it. What you mean by musical road? Got it. So there's this very. Hold on. So, if any of you haven't seen this video, there's a video where so there's a musical road that they added grooves in the road in order to produce a sound as you go along, but they didn't account for they didn't account for it correctly, so everything ended up offset but in a way that made it not even in tune with itself. And Are has done something similar here, where he's just added 30 APU cycles to each note, which is going to mean some notes aren't affected that much and others are affected enormously. If you haven't seen this video here, why California's musical road sounds terrible, it's actually really interesting. Okay. So, let's... Sorry, Are, it took me a while to figure out what you meant by musical road. Okay, that's a really good idea. Okay. Nope. That's not what I meant to do. Okay, so open that with our hex editor, find F207, then copy this data here. Okay, now so for low notes, the additional 30 cycles are going to make a smaller difference, but on the higher you go, it's going to get flatter and flatter. Sorry, where did you want? Metal Man. Artery wanted Metal Man. Good, I don't have to enter a password. A human in theory. Yeah, I believe that is the... As far as I know, that is the explanation, that they didn't account for... Or... I thought it was that the people who came up with the design were... they provided a distance center to center between the grooves, but that the people who actually installed the road... made that the distance between the grooves. But you'd have to check that original, or that video I showed for a good explanation. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, they tried to fix the road, but then they messed up again, and I think they just kind of gave up at that point. Like, they spent that much money trying to make a musical road, and they just kind of let it be bad. Alright, so one thing I do want to listen to real quick, I want to do the mullet tuning with the Metal Man. Oh, Ardo says they had to rebuild it in a different place. It's as beautiful as a real mullet. Okay, so I think we've covered the bases for MegaMan. Actually, real quick, I want to go to let's just listen to some of the levels we haven't yet. In random mode. So this is pure random. So the mullet tuning is half random, half normal. We haven't done Bubble Man. Okay, we definitely need to listen to Bubble Man in some different versions. Alright. Before we go any further, let's go back to let's listen to the default music for Bubble Man. Okay. So now inverted. Now, it's a shame that there's no way to get a retrograde version without completely reprogramming all the music. Because it'd be interesting to just hear all of the music backwards, or a retrograde inversion. Alright, I'm gonna stop dying so we can actually listen to that second half of this. Well, it's not that hard to do a retrograde for one song. It's just there's no convenient way to apply that transformation. It's literally just going through and changing each song note by note. So it's certainly possible. It's just there's no way to... It would be great if, so, hold on real quick. If we go back to our ROM file. So here's our music table, or our note table here. Right before it is our duration table. So 2, 4, 8, and then 10 in binary, or 10 in hexadecimal, which is 16, 32, 64. These define the length of notes. So if I were to change that to, here, this will be terrible. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then this other table defines the length of dotted notes. So let's just say that's A, B, C, D, E, F. We can mess with the durations. And of course, all of the tracks are going to get out of sync from each other. It's a shame we couldn't just make all those values negative and do a retrograde. So what's happened here... What has happened here? Okay, I see what's happened. So one of the tracks... One of the tracks made it to a song end flag, and then all of the tracks stopped. This isn't quite what I expected. I'll need to look into that and figure out what's going on. Because I would expect everything to be, you know, relatively short. You know, like less than 16 frames long. Interesting. But yeah, that's why we can't do... there's no way to make those values negative. So... that's why we can't just do a plain transformation there to change that. Okay, so as far as the next stream is concerned, I do have an idea. I haven't gotten into Castlevania yet, so the issue with these is not all of these games have have a published disassembly, so you can kind of look in to. So sometimes you end up like literally just opening up the hex file and saying, okay, this is what I expect A4 to be. Let's look at all values of, what is it, like OFC or something, and figure out if any of those might be a note table. So I will look into Castlevania in the future, but the next one I want to do is we're going to take advantage of the fact that there's another game that uses pretty much the same sound engine as MegaMan. And this is just a 2 octaves lower and twice as slow version of DuckTales. And so this is what I'm going to be aiming for the next stream. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I know it wasn't the best scheduling being on Easter, but thank you all for coming. And if you're catching this after the fact, thank you for watching. Have a great day.